So we have a new intro for the show.
Oh, do we ever? I'm so excited to
a
talk about
wholesale
this.
change. Now, we got a little variation in the intro in Game of Thrones where sometimes they would sub in or out the locations that we were going to visit
On the map,
in
yeah.
the episode. But this is a complete redo of the intro. And I know Maggie has some points about the tapestry, but I want to sort of set the table first because I know that's going to be smart, and I have a stupid question first. So
I love stupid questions.
We have this
Order of operations.
Yeah.
baby steps. We have this quilted, cross-stitched, beautiful tapestry being constructed in real time for the minute and a half that the glorious intro music plays in the background. Obviously, it's beautiful to watch. It's interesting. I don't think I'll get bored of it, even if they kept this for the rest of the show.
You won't get bored of it. In my preparations for this, I watched it about 35 times, and I did not get bored of it. So it's going to be great.
But like the thing my brain does, because I know I could go frame by frame and look for all the historical events that are being depicted. But as you know, every time we encounter a dream sequence in a book, I couldn't care less about that. That is not what my brain does. I'm interested in the why. The what is this achieving? What is this change doing? Because when Maggie and I rewatched a couple episodes of season 1 to prepare for season 2 to really get back in the swing of things, I was quite taken by the intro to season 1, which, if you've forgotten, since it's been 2 years, that was a river of like Sweeney Todd level blood flowing through, staining, drowning King's Landing through all of these different areas of castles.
I think it was Old Valyria, actually,
was it?
Not King's Landing.
All right.
Yes, I think it was
That's
meant
my memory as well.
I think it was meant to be the big model that Viserys was building in his chambers.
Okay.
So, but yes, we thought it was King's Landing at first, but I think it was Old Valyria.
And I like that because it felt like a gesture at the history of all of the people that have been murdered up until this point in an ancient history, so many decades before Game of Thrones. But in the course of that show, season 1 at least, not many characters were killed. Like if we rewatched a little of House of the Dragon, some people die. Viserys dies a little bit every few minutes, but not many people are murdered in a way that their blood is spilled. So as I was watching that, even in the season finale for season 1, I was seeing that blood as being historical and almost dry. It's not like fresh blood.
Or it's like blood lines instead of like blood spilled.
But then you get to the end of season 1, the very end, and there is someone who dies. There's a child who dies, much like the end of this episode.
That's right.
So
spoilers?
Yeah.
So I thought we were going to get this same intro going into season 2. And then it was like we'd opened a new vein. And this blood rushing through this kingdom, some of that blood is Luke.
Oh, yes.
Like, we have this inciting incident now. So some of this blood is starting to run as we enter this apocalyptic civil war where 1 billion people will die.
Oh, shit,
we're now really getting into that real-time blood flowing. And instead we did a hard pivot into cross-stitching and tapestry and quilting. And I think that brings me right back to those historical meditations I was having in the first season. It pulls you back to thinking about war and these epic, operatic, artistic impressions. Seeing a river of blood, that's not a real thing. That's obviously an expression of a greater history. And I think it's nice that just as the blood started to flow, they pivoted us right back so we didn't lose sight of the historical perspective that really matters in an anthology show like Fire and Blood.
Yeah, I think that's perfect. And I like you I appreciate all of the textile terms that you used incorrectly here. But I'm not being pedantic. It's actually very important.
She has her fist clenched. She is being pedantic.
No, in about 30 seconds, I'll explain. That's going to be very important. But first, I'll say I loved this tapestry choice because it felt, you're right, Kim, it does feel so appropriate for where we are in the story. If you go back to Game of Thrones, when the intro is this map, that makes so much sense for that world and that story because the whole point is that it is about war that is fought across nations, across peoples, across the land, and it's all about strategy and planning and where do you put your little pieces on the map as you plan, your attacks on your enemy and how do things cross, how are things connecting with one another, where are the players in this game.
Season's about crafting.
Well, there is also that. and then in season 1 of House of the Dragon, it's about establishing like this line, this historical family of the Targaryens. They come from Old Valyria, right? And so then to move into this tapestry, it makes perfect sense because the whole House of the Dragon story, the Fire and Blood story, is about crafting and weaving the history of the Targaryens. The whole book, Fire and Blood, is a history of the Targaryens. And one of the most common and like impactful ways that history was recorded in the Middle Ages and beyond, apart from writing, like from books, was through tapestry. And I think that works perfectly here. But to go back to your textile terms, Cam. So I actually want to
mistakes.
share. No, I'm not gonna. The point here.
Your offenses.
I should give some quick background for those of you who are new. Number one, I am an art historian by training, especially in medieval art history. So a lot of that's going to come in here. Number two, I am a sewist, quilter, embroiderer, cross stitcher for fun on the side. And
is it really called a sewist?
Sewist. I know
that
it
either.
Sounds so weak. I don't like it. Sewist.
Sewer?
No, it's
I would
sewist.
have said seamstress.
No, I'm not
Ooh, a
see,
spinster.
no. Cam,
old maid.
We are literally married, but that's fine. No. But so that context is important, but no. So looking at this tapestry, it's not actually a tapestry. It is in fact an embroidery. So a tapestry is a textile is created by weaving, no, this is important, by weaving threads vertically and horizontally, like together to form a textile. And when you make a tapestry, you integrate different color and types of threads to form an image in your tapestry. So like the image is literally part of the textile. On an embroidery, you are creating an image using thread on top of an existing textile. And so that's what this is here. And I thought that choice was really important because a very, very famous work of textile art, the Bayeux Tapestry, is also not a tapestry. It's an embroidery, and it's done in the same fashion. It's like colored wool thread on linen cloth. And I'm mentioning the Bayeux Tapestry because that is exactly what I think this is trying to emulate. I'm going to ask you all after this, or during,
The listeners.
the listener and Cam and Tristan, to look up the Bayeux Tapestry. If you're on YouTube, we'll have some photos running through, and also we'll include a link, but it's spelled Bayeux, Bayeux
Does it have
Tapestry.
like crocodiles and stuff?
No, it does not. It's not that kind of
Wait, hold on. There was some letters I didn't expect in there.
yeah,
What is it?
Bayeux, because it's French.
Oh.
Because the Bayeux Tapestry is an 11th century textile that tells the story of the Norman conquest of William the Conqueror. Cam, who does
France.
that sound like in Game of Thrones terms?
Aegon the Conqueror.
Yes. So it tells the story of William the Conqueror, who was the Duke of Normandy. If you know your English history, 1066, William, Duke of Normandy, was denied the throne, even though he was promised the throne. The King Edward the Confessor dies. Some other guy takes the throne, but
Charlemagne?
No, stop. We're not going to do this. So Edward the Confessor dies. He had told his pal, Duke of Normandy, that he could be the king. But instead, some loser named Harold takes it instead. And William says, I don't think so. And he sails across the English Channel. Normandy is in the north of France. He sails across the English Channel, and the Battle of Hastings is fought. And then he wins the throne, kills Harold, and then basically England is forever changed for the rest of history. So that is a huge moment in English history, and it is very reminiscent of this tapestry, aka embroidery, that we are seeing in this intro. And I didn't do like a full deep dive on every single scene that you see in this embroidery in this intro, because the point isn't what you're seeing, but you are seeing the fall of Old Valyria, Aegon's conquest. You see the burning of Harrenhal. You see the Great Council that names Viserys as the heir. You also see the beginning of the Dance of the Dragons. You see Luke die. Like that's kind of what's important to know there. So it's so mirrored. It's so. It's
an incredible pull.
It's so exciting.
That's awesome.
Wow.
And so like Cam, to go back to your question, like what is this doing? Number one, it legitimizes the history of Westeros as like this like actual like feel in a way that feels truly historic thing that happened. And it like reminds us of the connections to English history that George R. R. Martin is intentionally drawing in the rest of his story. I think it's famously well known now that the Game of Thrones story is very much inspired by the War of the Roses, which is a 15th century civil war in England between the Lancasters and the Yorks, Lannisters and Starks.
And that one's Charlemagne.
No. And
The radio host?
y'all, Charlemagne is France. It doesn't matter. But also, I learned recently that the story of House of the Dragon, this like Viserys naming his daughter as heir and then people not liking it, is based on what's called the Anarchy, a 12th century civil war in England and Normandy after the death of King Henry I. His son had died, so he named his daughter Matilda. People didn't like that, so war broke out. Matilda.
Is that what that's about?
No, it's not.
I never read that.
Was she like? Could she like lift shit with her mind?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. But so like it connects it to English. It further connects this story to English history, a thing that like feels really important for the history of Western fantasy. But what it's also doing is it reminds us that this story is ongoing, because Cam, you notice too that it's not like they're just showing us static shots of a tapestry. We are literally seeing it being woven and embroidered and created in real time. And it tells us that the story is still ongoing and that it is not finished, because you don't see the end of this story in the tapestry. At the end of the intro, you see Luke dying, which is the beginning of the war. And so it reminds us that it's still ongoing. And what's even more interesting is that the Bayeux Tapestry, while likely finished, it was made like in the decade or two after the Norman conquest, like very soon after, like during William's lifetime. But the end of it is missing. And historians don't think that it wasn't complete. Like, why would somebody commission a 70-meter long tapestry only to
Wait,
not
it's
finish
70
it?
meters long?
It is so long, Tristan. It is so long. It is.
I'm looking at a picture of it right now, but I guess I didn't appreciate
No, I
that
should
is
have said
like
that at the
that
bat.
entire thing.
Wow.
It's
is-
massive. It's so long.
Do you roll it up?
Yeah, no. Right now it's on display in a museum in Normandy, and it's like you like walk through the halls to look at the whole thing, and it's like not even in pieces; it's in one thing. But why would you go to all this trouble only to not complete it? So we think just part of it is missing. But what's cool is that the tapestry itself doesn't have an ending; like the ending is missing, and that tells us that the story is just like the story of England is still ongoing. The story of England is not ended, and so I thought that was such a cool thing to introduce into their intro. And to draw those historical connections.